fellow Toastmaster members and guests. As all of you know, there's increasing human population, and this is having a significant impact on our Earth. Kind of continue the light mood that Juan set. With global warming and increasing disasters, and then you have pollution. There's the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, microplastics, and so how do we reduce our environmental impact or footprint? We want to save energy, reduce the amount of material that we consume, and then some stuff we just can't reduce. I have a 2.5-year-old son, so he seems to be buying stuff all the time and producing a lot of waste, and so it's important to recycle. And in the 90s, they came up with, some engineers developed methods to encourage recycling called single stream recycling, where you put all your recyclables into a single bin. Previously, you had to sort them and clean everything. It was a lot of work, but it resulted in recyclable material that was easy to recycle, free of contaminants, and so recycling centers could get more money for the recycled material. With single stream recycling, people are recycling more material, but a quarter to a third of it is just going to the dump due to contamination. And so how do we recycle more effectively? First, understanding how single stream recycling works. Like, how do they separate all these different material? You have paper, cardboard, glass, stuff that shouldn't go in there. I saw a picture of a crock pot someone tried to recycle. And so what it uses, so there's some kind of manual pre-sorting. People stand there and literally pull out stuff that shouldn't be recycled. And then there's a lot of machines that use large rotating discs. They crush the glass so it kind of, little particles fall out, and with the sediment, they have that, send it off for a separate process. They use magnets to pull out the metal. They use something called an eddy flow, which is like a reverse magnet for aluminum. So it'll shoot it up and gets collected, and then optical scanners will pick out plastic bottles, and then they'll use air currents to push those bottles into separate bins, and so they all get separated out with a lot of manual people pulling out things. But in the end, because people are putting in wrong material, you get contaminants, and it results in a costly recycling process. And so some of the primary contaminants are like plastic bags and surprisingly shredded paper. So first thing to do is you want to know what can be recycled. And reading a lot of different news articles, Wikipedia, different pages, there's a lot of conflicting information out there, and part of it is because these recycling centers differ by community. So it's important to go to so Montgomery County has a good website, DC has a good website, and there's different things that you can recycle at different places you live. So in Montgomery County, you can recycle plastics with the triangle numbers 1 through 5, and then also 7. You can recycle paper, glass, but you want to separate the paper and the glass, and the metal bottles. So it's important to go to the website and see specifically what you can recycle where, because it changes, and it's always good to refer to. I found this app, Earth 911, where you can look up a specific item you want to know if you can recycle it, and it'll tell you whether you can recycle it where you are, whether through curbside or different centers. I found incandescent light bulbs. On the Montgomery County website, you can't, they say to throw them away in your regular trash, but Batteries Plus locations, it's a store in the area, you can take your incandescent light bulbs there and they'll recycle them, and they take batteries as well. So then the third part for kind of improving how you recycle is reducing the contaminants. So you want to, for your plastic bottles, glass, and jars, you want to remove all food waste, and so just kind of rinsing out the food. And then for plastic film is a major issue because the plastic bags, like grocery bags, it'll get caught up in the machines, so they have to turn the machines, shut the machines down and pull it out, and it can be very problematic. But you can recycle plastic film, plastic bags at grocery stores at designated drop-off places. I've also learned that it's not just the grocery bags or newspaper bags that you can recycle there as well. Any type of, like, the plastic around paper towels when you get the big thing at Costco, that's recyclable. And so there's a lot of different types of plastic that you can, plastic film, and it's plasticfilmrecycling.org. After name website lists the different types of plastic film that you can recycle. So, then the other type of material for recycling that can be a contaminant that I mentioned earlier is shredded paper. And so you may think, well, if you can recycle paper, what's wrong with shredded paper? So when the shredded paper gets wet, it can get sticky, and be problematic for the machines. But what you can do is you can put shredded paper in a box, in a paper bag, staple it shut, tape it shut, and put that in your recycling, and then it will be free and gum up the works. So I hope you've learned a bit about recycling and can be a little bit better at recycling. I used to be a little optimistic in my recycling, kind of throw things in there and hope for the best. Felt better than throwing it in a trash can. But knowing what you can recycle and how will make it, will result in more of what we want, intend to be recycled, actually be recycled. So, thank you very much.
So Mr. Nate Olson, thank you for giving this speech on recycling. This was for your research and presenting portion of this. I want to congratulate you on picking a relevant topic with a good question that we don't often think about enough. We all know that recycling is important and that doing it well matters, but we're not always sure why or how. And so this gave us some good information for moving on that. As usual, I liked your welcoming posture and tone. It was very not intimidating, even though this is a big topic. We're talking about the environment, social responsibility, and all that. And it was a good structure with a lot of practical information on ways we could all go back and do better at something that we all do, whether because we want to or it's legally required, which I believe it is in the county, so that's always good to be legally compliant. Some things I think that would help would be to make better use of physical pacing and pauses to give people kind of a sense of your structure and where you're at in the speech. I find that really helpful. And maybe doing a little bit more with vocal variety, especially because you had some really interesting things to talk about in terms of how recycling actually happens, which I hadn't given much thought to. And so the actions you were talking about, how to separate single stream recycling, could have used a little more visual and vocal punctuation, I think, to really drive home about how hard this is to separate everything. Another thing that would have helped, or would have helped me anyway, would be using more images, especially because you kept mentioning all these visually interesting things that I really wanted to see, like a crock pot in a recycling pile, or mounds of trash, or how glass gets crushed. You could have even brought maybe physical objects, which would have been nice to drive home the process, the fact that we're all going to touch things and then do things with them, and that this can become a better habit and we can do it more effectively. I also thought it would have been good to talk more about the costs of recycling, because that would have been interesting to hear about too. This is something we all pay for, it's in our taxes, and in some cases it's getting quite a bit more expensive because of people not doing enough, and so we all have an incentive actually to do a better job, even if we don't always see the direct consequences of our actions. And I thought also it would have been good to talk more about reduction of waste, which you mentioned at the beginning. And it would have been good to hear maybe a little bit more about how we can all do that so that we have less work to do when it comes to recycling. But overall, it was a great topic, a really good structure and some good practical advice, reminding us that this is work that people have to do and we can all do our part to make it work better. So it was a really interesting thing and made me want to go look up more, which is, I think, a really good sign of success when not only have you given me something to work with, but you've prompted me to be more curious. So excellent work, thank you.
Kirby?